Good morning. Welcome to Books at the Top of the Stairs. There are still no books at the bottom of the stairs. We are working our way slowly through the construction, I guess, of the house, and books are sort of the last thing to go into play. So that makes me a little bit frustrated today because I have searched high and low for the book Dandelion Wine by Bradbury because I wanted to do a comparison. But because I don't have it in my hand, find that having the object in my hand helps cue me. I don't know why. It's just some kind of weird magic thing. But what I wanted to compare it to was his second book in the series, Ray Bradbury's Farewell Summer. The third one, I believe, is something this, how does that go? Something Wicked This Way Comes. So this is the second one. And it was written 50 some odd years after the original one. So I didn't realize that. I think someone might have mentioned it to me after I had purchased this book. But I thought, I wonder what that's going to be like, something that's 50 years apart. And boy, oh boy, are they very, very different. And we have got in the first book Dandelion Wine. Did I say that at the beginning or did I get it wrong? Dandelion Wine, and no, I haven't been drinking, was written in early of Ray Bradbury's career. And what I found so remarkably different about the books is the writing style. We have some of the same characters in both books. We've got Douglas, who's about 12, 13, and his younger brother Tom, who's kind of 10, 11. And they live in one house, and the grandparents live in the next house over. And there's the same group of boys, the gang of boys that got into mischief in the first book, same in the second book. And there's a little group of girls in the first book that reappear in the second book. And as far as the older people go, we don't really see mom and dad or grandma particularly. And there were a whole lot of townspeople that we saw in the first book. None of those really show up in the second book, except for 3 old men. So in the second book, we've got Douglas, who is for some reason, this is one of the things I found difficult to get my head around was Douglas is all of a sudden sort of at war with the older men. I think he perceives the older men, and I mean seniors, to somehow inhibit, no, actually not really to inhibit youth, but to get in the way of staying young. He sees the older generation as sort of opening the gates to aging, and he and his brothers and his gang of boys don't want to. They want to stay boys forever. So they come up with this kind of little civil war that they enact. Well, in the first couple of pages, so this is a spoiler. I don't know how long you need. I don't know how to do time marks. Spoiler. In the very beginning, we've got Douglas who encounters one of the older men, and there's Douglas kills this guy bam. The guy scares himself so silly that he gives himself a heart attack. And minutes later, Douglas is riding his bike furiously away from the crime scene, which isn't really a crime scene, and bangs his bike into an older man called Quartermain. And Quartermain sustains a broken leg and ends up in a wheelchair. And so all of a sudden there's this kind of war. The Quartermain and his friends, who once upon a time would have been the boys of the town, are now fixated, Quartermain in particular, fixated on Douglas and his little tribe, and they're just kind of wreaking havoc upon each other. And so I don't want to give too much more away, because if you read this book as a standalone, having never encountered Dandelion Wine, you will love it. I think you will really adore this book. One of the things that was a mistake for me is that as I was reading it along, I'm kind of referencing back in my head to a book one and thinking, oh wow, I'm not sure I like that, or oh wow, that's really different. But if you start with this book, I think that you will enjoy it. the shenanigans that the boys and the older men get up to are amusing, and of course the boys get caught because the adults around them are wise enough and remember their own youth enough that it's not that hard to catch a bunch of 12-year-olds. So there are repercussions. What I think for me was the biggest difficulty is that there is a comparison opportunity between the two books, and I can't say that I love this one the way I loved Dandelion Wine, despite the fact that I can never pronounce its title correctly. To me, what I've been thinking about this for most of the day, because I finished this last night, and thinking, what is it that doesn't jibe with me? And I think, although, of course, Ray Bradbury is an excellent craftsman of his writing, this is a lot heavier-handed. I felt like the first book, Dandelion Wine, was sort of written with a feather. There were so many beautiful descriptions of people and town and setting and atmosphere, texture, a river, dappled sunlight. He had an amazing onslaught of not metaphors, similes, I guess, and just poetics. Poetics just raced through Dandelion Wine. And this one, of course, he still has that same kind of incredible capturing of language in little tour de forces all over the place. But they were less frequent, and they were not as... they were more earthbound, if that makes sense. I've got more of a sense of the characters than I did of the setting, which is no terrible thing. But I just didn't feel, when I was reading Dandelion Wine, I felt like I was traveling along on a cloud, sort of watching what was happening. And I was sort of a participant, but I was also somewhat above and just really enjoying a beautiful summer. Now this one is taking place sort of October, in a late summer little spurt of warmth and sunshine, and the leaves haven't fallen, so they're having this kind of second summer. And I'm told that, but I don't feel it quite in the same way. And similarly with Douglas's emotions, I see that he's experiencing emotions, and I'm not quite in his head as deeply. And I think what's, look, I'm not an expert or anything like that. I could never pass an academic course in a comparison of the writing of the life of Ray Bradbury. That would never happen. But I feel that there's definitely a difference between the youthful writer and the experienced writer. And although this is a very highly competent story and highly competent characters and great plotting, great pacing, it just doesn't have the magic that Dandelion Wine does. So I'm a little disappointed. Again, as I say, if I had just read this on its own without any other references, I'd probably rank it a little higher in books that I love. But as it is, it's probably going to stay in my mind more as a little point of irritation as opposed to a little more joy. So the third one, Something Wicked This Way Comes, I've heard some people comment on it, and I'm just not sure I'm going to go there. I think when you love, I don't know, I'm that kind of person that if I have a really good memory, I try not to go back to the scene of the memory. I like to try and just keep it intact. So I'm not sure I want to undermine Dandelion Wine by another reading experience that disappoints me. But disappoint is the wrong word. Just met different expectations, I guess. So I did read another book, but it's not in my hands again. Lessons in Chemistry. I don't have it with me. I'll talk about it next time. It's for my book club in a little while. So I'll bring it back to you when I have finished chatting to the ladies about that one. But super enjoyed it. And I know it's been part of BookTube a couple of times. So I don't imagine I'll be bringing anything too new to the perceptions about the book. But if you want to hear about it, I will bring it back to you. All right. One of the other things about Farewell Summer is that as I was reading, I had another book in the background that it was like, I finished this Farewell Summer because I really want to get to this book. I mentioned it to you when I had my accident that we'd gone to a bookstore that had cats in the bookstore, and that I just kind of grabbed a bunch of books. I didn't really know what I was doing. This is number 4 in the Sisters Grimm series, Once Upon a Crime. It's by Michael Buckley, and I'm really enjoying it. There are 3 previous ones. I'm pretty sure I've read at least one of them. And I think this is for middle grade readers, by the way, and it's about 2 girls who are the long time later ancestors of Grimm. What was his name? There's Anderson. Oh my goodness, Hans Andersen. And the brothers Grimm. Anyways, they're in New York. These 2 little girls, Daphne and Sabrina. Their parents had gone missing, and in previous episodes the parents had been found, but they're under a sleeping spell. And the 2 girls live in a community, and that's where a huge number of fairies and trolls and fairy tale type characters, like let's just pretend the 3 pigs, are residing, and they're in this kind of bubble so that they can't get out, because when the bubble was created umpteen years earlier, there was kind of a war going on, and so the Grimm family created this bubble that kept all these fairy tale characters enclosed. But what the Grimm family hasn't realized is that, the other characters from other fairy tales and other fairies have moved to New York. And they're in different parts of the country, and some of them are good guys and some of them aren't. So we've got a trip to New York that's happening. They're trying to save one of their friends, and I guess this character is going to come out sooner or later. So I'm really enjoying it. I think it's a really fun little series, and I recommend it for those of you who like a bit of magic and a bit of chaos. Well, the other thing I did, and this is more of a book chat, for a couple of years now, I have, this is just a small section. I've kept these book blogs, diaries, these book diaries, I guess, and in them I would write the title of the book, the author, and I would just grade it, okay, good, very good, and I don't think I would include, if I didn't read a book, I don't think I included. And these go back, oh boy, they go back to at least 2003, or at least this book does. But somewhere in the world, in the house, there's all the stuff that I did prior to that, in the 80s and so forth. And I think that one was more of a list kind of keeping track of, because in those days I had little kids. We would go into the library and I'd get them settled down in the children's section, run up the 10 steps to the adults, new release section, and just, and then check them out. And so what I would do, so this goes back to 2001. And what I would do in those ones, I would just keep a list. And when I would get home, I would double check what I had grabbed against my list. Like, there was no discerning going on. And so a couple of times I would have an author that I was following through on the series. And so Edward Marston and Joe Gores, Jan William van der Wetterging, Dutch. Okay, so what I would do, over the course of time is just try and follow through on an author. And so I had about 15 authors that I just kept trying to keep track of. And as the years went by, I don't know about you guys, but do you lose track of an author over time? And you just think, oh yeah, I used to read such and such an author, and then I've kind of, I don't know what happened. Maybe they weren't producing a book for a little while, and I just missed it or what have you. But this was also before the internet, and I could just Google somebody's name and see what had been published recently. So I've had it on my mind for a couple of years to go back into these books and just see what's going on currently. And so, for instance, Lily Tal wrote Mimis, and then there was also I Am the Messenger by Marcus Zuzak. That was a big hit there for a while in the I think 2006. So what I did while I was sitting in bed, sick with my very unhappy foot, I went through one of those journals and pulled out all the names of authors that I kind of lost track of. And so I have 4 full pages of authors that I'd like to revisit. And so the next thing I did was I went through a little bit of Wikipedia, a little bit of the library, and a little bit of Goodreads, and just tried to follow the careers of these different authors. And just to see, I'm still cleaning. My hair is just full of dust. There's dust everywhere. So yeah, so like I can go like this and it'll pretty much stand on end. So I came up with probably about 50 or 60 names that I was trying to follow. And out of that, I think I whittled it down to about 30 authors. And then I also went through and just tried to figure out which books I had read in the past. And so out of them, I've got a few where I'm completely done. Like Nancy Farmer, who I adore. I think she's just an amazing author. As far as I can tell, hasn't written anything since The Sea of Trolls. Then there's Donna Jo Napoli, who I think is pretty much close to not writing anymore. I'm not positive. But she has so many books, and I loved every single one of her books. So I'm going to go back and just try and, complete the backlist. Where I'm going to fit this into my reading desires, I have no idea. But one of the things I thought I would just say to you is a couple of authors' names, just that I thought you might like to go back and see. These are a lot of middle reader and YA, although there are some adult writers in there. I'm not going to give you the whole list. I'm just going to bring back a couple that that you may have noticed to begin with. So Donna Jo Napoli is really worth a visit. And Donna Morrissey, she's an Atlantic writer who is, if you haven't read Donna Morrissey, she's really quite a good author to just start back with Kit's Law. Let's see. Well, Nancy Farmer, for sure, but I'm not going to go back to her, as I say. She is a very rock-solid author, and I think she's done a couple of, don't quote me, but I think she's done a couple of retellings of things like Robin Hood, and oh gosh, I hope I've got the right author. But anyways, whatever she's written, you can't go wrong. Let's see. Melina Marchetta, I believe she's, I'm going to say Australian, but she did Saving Francesca, On Jellicoe Road, and I've read just about everything she's got. There's only one that I haven't finished. Now, an author that's an adult that I have super enjoyed is Margaret Elphinstone, who wrote Voyager and High Brazil and Light and Sea Road. No, I haven't finished her, so she's someone I'm going back to. And someone else you may have possibly forgotten about is, where was she? Oh, this is a mystery. It's kind of a cozy mystery thing. So for those of you who like a series and, a really solid female detective, is Susan Wittig, Wittig, Albert. And she's got things like Time of Death, Witch's Bane, Hangman's Root, Rosemary Remembered, and I believe that it is quite a nice series. I really enjoyed it. And again, I've got a note here that goes that there's up to 25 in the series. So if you like to trail along on a series, she's a good author. Well, there are others, but those are the ones who I think have sort of either the best backlist or have written quite a lot that you're sure to find something that you like. Okay, I think that's it for me. The books are not making it back onto the shelves in the house. What we're doing is putting everything furniture-wise back in its place, and then we're slowly putting back pictures and curtains. And what's happening is that I thought I had all these piles of books, kind of organized as they came up the stairs. That goes in my studio. That's the pile of books I'm currently reading, that sort of thing. But as we're pulling the curtains and the art and the little bits and pieces of furniture out, books are moving. And so I think what I'm going to be facing is having to just take every book I own and just put them on the beds, spread them out, and just try and think, what happened? And then recapture it. I'm having a kind of a fun time deleting. So I've taken a dresser out of the picture that I don't want anymore, and a table I don't want anymore, and a 2-seat couch that I really like, but it's just one piece of furniture too many. And I think I'm going to do that with some of the books too. And I think I've talked Stephen to kind of pulling some of his books out too to make room. But I think I said this before, as my daughter has said, there's plenty of wall space, so we could get more shelves. But it's just so delicious to have some elbow room. Where if you come upstairs, there is no way you could say that there's elbow room up here. It is diabolically difficult to walk around here. So that means I can't find my TBR pile. I honestly cannot find the pile of books that I very carefully put in a safe spot. I also cannot find a pair of knitting needles that I was, going to work on while this was all happening. And I thought, oh, I need those needles. Don't put them in a crazy place. And so I bet they're together, and I bet they're somewhere insane under a bed where I was thinking, oh yeah, that won't get in the way. Who knows what I'm going to bring to you next week? It's a mystery for you and me both. I hope all your reading dreams and adventures continue to come true, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye for now.